Success. Is that what we want? What is success? How do we get there? What path do we take? We may have some answers. Is it written down somewhere? In a book? This is Grit 2021, How We Navigate. I'm Jamaul Graham, and with me today to answer some of these questions is Judith Brown Clarke. You've reached the highest success in athletics, education, the private and public sector. What drives you?
Thank you, Jamaul. I'm enjoying this conversation and to share with you kind of my background. And for me, I wasn't really trying to do any particular thing. The reason that I have multiple careers and goals is because those are things that are important to me, and I didn't feel like I had to choose either one. I could do them simultaneously.
That's nice. Which, do you have like a favorite, or?
Do I have a favorite? You know what? It's interesting because they're so interrelated, because each of them is a part of me. So from sport, everything about me is athletics. I am offense, defense, the playbook, a teammate, a coach, a mentor, a healer. So all that comes out when I do diversity, equity, and inclusion, and that's done within a university. And then being in politics, it's like, how do you heal the same way you're doing within education is how do you do it for your community? So literally, to me, I don't see a difference. It's just a different table that I'm sitting at.
Okay. Were there anyone like that, didn't really feel that you should be, that you shouldn't take the route that you decided to take? And, how did you overcome that?
Every route I took, someone felt I shouldn't take that, or that I had to choose. And so for me, it was a part of who I am. And so sport, typically you don't think of excelling in academics. In academics, you don't typically see excelling in sport, but you can't excel in sport without being academically savvy and understanding how to study and become a student of the sport and what you need to do to excel to an elite level. And then conversely, I couldn't excel in education and in politics without using like all the skills I learned working together with colleagues or teammates or collaborators in a way in which we're going for this ultimate goal. So my ability to have tenacity and grit and to set goals for myself all came from sport, and that serves me extremely well in academics and education. So anytime anybody had a salty comeback or felt they knew what I should do, I just took that as another point of input, but it didn't change the direction as what I was going to do. Take that under advisement. Thank you for your opinion.
How would you say your journey was in excelling like in the sports field and all the others?
So a lot of people will say, did you train for the Olympics? Absolutely not. I always trained for the next step. And so if I was competing in high school, it's like I wanted to compete in college. And then what do I need to do to make the next step? And then, once I reached, college, then it was like, how do I compete as one of the best collegians? And then I would compete there. And then it was like, okay, so then what does it take to compete beyond this at a global stage? And I focused on that. So it was never, I never tripped over today looking at what my ultimate goal is, because those are sequential steps. How I get there really isn't important. So if I have a goal to be the very best, how I get there right now is of zero interest to me. What is of interest to me is like, what skills do I need, and what tools and networks do I need, and partnerships and relationships do I need to continue moving forward.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
What did you have to achieve in order to get into the Olympics?
So for the Olympics, there's certain times you have to run or compete at a certain level, and so there's cutoffs. And if you don't, the only way you can compete at the Olympics if you run is considered an A time. So if you run this A time, then you automatically qualify, and then you have to compete with all the other individuals within your country that have that A time. And so it really required me to understand excellence is incremental, because literally the difference between making the team and not making the team could be 300ths of a second. So we're not talking about, oh, I'm running and, there's me and there's everybody else. That's not what elite performance is. It's usually very small differences between what you bring to the competition and what somebody else is. And at any given time, you may win. If we ran this same race or competed 5 minutes later, I may win. So some of it is like execution of knowing what you need to do to put yourself in the best position to win. And that's in anything. That's in an interview, it's in a test, it's in a project, and so on. So that's just how I perform.
You mentioned the A line.
Yeah.
Did you have multiple chances at competing for the A line, or was it just?
Yeah, so it's like when you go to your first day of class and they give you the class syllabus and they tell you that a 94% is an A, it's a 4.0. Now to get there, that's on you.
Okay.
So, that A standard is, I knew what it was because at the beginning of each year it would tell you what the A standard was to qualify for World Cup, World Championships, Olympics, Paralympic, or Pan American Games, and so on. So you knew what it was, but what it was and where you were, you had to create your own journey.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think, one of the ways that you start to really look at elite ways of accomplishing your goals is to figure out where it is you want to go and be, and then walk it back to where you are and create a pathway. But it's flexible because things always happen.
Yeah.
And so the grit and resilience is if something doesn't work, it's like, okay, plan B, plan C.
Mm-hmm.
Sometime you're in plan W. It's okay. Get over it, shake it off, move on.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So speaking of, all the other plans.
Yeah.
How did you get from audiology to diversity, equity, and inclusion?
So I don't know. You know what? So audiology and speech was something, what I enjoyed about it was clinical, and I wanted to help people. And so with audiology and speech, it really helped both with speech as well as hearing. And it was really interesting growing up in my elementary school, and I was in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We were an urban, poor district. And I saw a lot of brown kids like me that were in speech class. And they didn't have a speech impediment. They were just speaking street. And I was like, wait, do they really have an impediment, or are they just speaking street,
Yeah.
And, you drop the front of the letters off and the back off and so on. And it always was interesting to me. It's like, what is a speech impediment? Because I'm not speaking proper English, is that considered an impediment?
Yeah.
Or maybe I've got, multilingual and, and I'm bringing on the dialect of is that an impediment? So it's always really interesting to me. And that's kind of why my first interest was really around, and that as a child. So I couldn't say this eloquent right now, but in looking back, it was like why it was interesting to me. What's an impediment when you think of it within cultural perspectives? Do I have an impediment, or you just don't like the way I talk?
Yeah, I always thought, that was like another language, It's like being bilingual.
Absolutely. You start talking to your family, and people are like, wait, what did you say? What
Yeah.
does that mean? Yeah, because you have
All
your
the
twin
time.
talk, right? Yeah, it's our family talk. That's how we talk.
Yeah.
Dialect.
Do you have any regrets or anything you feel like you
Never.
wanted to change?
Never.
Never?
I'm not even gonna let you finish the question. Never, ever, ever, ever. I win or I learn. I win or I learn. Every time something doesn't turn out in the way in which I anticipated, I have to look back. Why did the outcome turn out in a way I didn't anticipate? Was it because I wasn't prepared? Did I not have enough information? Am I not skilled enough? What do I need to do so the next time I come there that I'm in a better position? It's not about losing. It's not about losing. You can lose a race, but you know what? I always, people will say, it's like, yeah, you lost the gold, but you won the silver. And I said, well, that's life. You know what? It's the same way. It's framing. And so you may have done something and it didn't come out the way you wanted. You didn't lose, it just didn't come
Yeah.
out the way you thought it was. And so if you want that same outcome, then maybe, there's some things you need to do when you do it again. But maybe the loss, quote unquote,
Yeah.
is really where you should be.
Yeah, there's this saying that I think it's like every L isn't a loss, it's sometimes a lesson learned.
Always
So,
a lesson learned. Always a lesson learned.
Yeah, I agree with
Always.
that statement.
Right. Everything happens for a reason or it deserves a meaning. And that's how you start to look at things. It's like, okay, if I can't figure out, what the reason is, then you know what? Then give it a meaning. Don't spend a lot of time on it because there's a lot of things that don't make any sense. But you're like, okay, so then what's the meaning of this?
Right.
Real time. Right.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for your insight.
Yeah, my
I enjoyed
pleasure.
this conversation a lot. Like, taught me some things as well too. So
It's my pleasure. And I just want to let you take away is there are no wrong choices. Life is a journey. No wrong choices. No
Definitely.
regrets. No time for that.
Definitely. Well, it was a pleasure meeting with you, Judi.
My pleasure.
Hope to see you again.
You will.